Welcome to the Revenue Rewired podcast, hosted by StringCan Interactive's visionary CEO, Jay Feitlinger, and no-nonsense COO, Sarah Shepard. We're here to accelerate your revenue and give your marketing purpose.
Well, hello and welcome everybody to this next episode of the Revenue Rewired podcast. It is a special solo cast with just Sarah today. And I've been thinking about this topic a lot lately, and we've been having internal conversations and with clients and friends and prospects. And I think you all can really resonate with what feels like the death of gut instinct and why you need to save it. This one has become a really interesting topic. Obviously, AI, you're all sick of hearing it, I know, but it's just part of my world and our industry now. And, we're trying to find unique ways to approach the topic. And I've noticed something really subtle happening to leaders lately, where there's some really cool stuff happening, tons of really cool tools we're using, new ways of solving problems that previously didn't exist, and it's happening at light speed. So we've all gotten insanely fast, way more efficient, so much more informed, more data driven. And at the same time, we've also gotten hesitant. It's almost like every decision needs a spreadsheet, a dashboard, or some sort of AI prompt validation before we move. And it's a little bit of analysis paralysis, but basically what's happening is you're outsourcing confidence, and that's killing gut instinct. And gut instinct is important. I think, when you've been in the industry or your space for as long as you have, there's a reason why it works a lot of the time. Gut instinct is not perfect. Validation is still necessary sometimes, and getting, other stakeholders to give you a more well-rounded perspective, that still has a lot of value. But killing the gut instinct was not AI's purpose or intent, but it did give us a mirror to reflect how deeply we crave certainty. And certainty and clarity are not the same. I personally, maybe I struggle with it, if you want to say that, and you might resonate with this too, but I really want things to be super certain. When you're a risk adverse, or maybe just even like an excellent risk manager, you want things to be certain as they can be. And so you go to great lengths to make sure that certainty is part of, your process. It's part of your next project. It's just part of your life. That's why a lot of us type A people plan things to the nth degree. And if you've ever heard of Hofstadter's law, where everything takes longer, even when you account for Hofstadter's law, it has made me question lately why that is and why I crave so much certainty. And by the way, that law is mentioned in an excellent way in the book 4,000 Weeks, by Oliver Berkman. But, clarity is different than certainty, where clarity kind of helps initiate movement and certainty feels more safe. If you wait for certainty before you act, it's just going to really slow your business down, and your instincts are going to be screaming at you. And I think a lot of visionaries, if you've listened to the episode, I think it's episode 7, where Jay and I have this visionary integrator power duo or power struggle chat. I really needed a lot of certainty. And he, as a visionary, he's more risk forward. He didn't need as much certainty, but he was really excellent on the clarity side of things. And so the two of us can come together and work through some of the challenges that we have or the concerns. But I think you still need to celebrate leaders who can walk into a room and feel. They can feel where momentum was, they can read tone, energy, silence, and they can know where something's off before anyone says a word. And now it's more who used the data to tell the story, and how do we validate that? And we celebrate those leaders who use data. And then we run 3 more reports to make sure that they're right. And then ask ChatGPT to write out the plan before trusting the person who already knew that that was the plan. And it can seem it feels redundant, And I don't know that a lot of us are really aware that it's happening or that we're doing it. And while AI has made us faster, in a way, it's slowing us down by making us second guess the one thing that used to make us great at leading. And that's our ability to sense, decide, and move. And because leadership isn't really about having the most information, it's about knowing what to do with it when the clock is ticking and the stakes are high. And we've convinced ourselves that precision equals progress, but a lot of decisions die while they're waiting for the perfect data. And this actually comes up in our world a little bit in terms of case studies and having like the perfect, full, fleshed out story. We've had this conversation just in the last couple of days in a leadership meeting of, well, how much data do we need to tell this story? And sort of start telling micro stories to help people resonate with their particular problem. And every week, I see people hesitating because they just need one more piece of validation to test a campaign they're launching, or waiting to perfect a script before calling a prospect back, or triple, quadruple checking a scope document. And I think people recognize other people are peopling. We're just humans, and AI in all its brilliance feeds that second guessing behavior because it is so easy to get another answer. It's another option, another model, another what if. And the more inputs you collect, the more you start to feel like you're drowning in them. And gut instinct isn't magic, it's pattern recognition at speed. And in the human brain, it's built on a lifetime of wins and losses, risks and recoveries. And, it says, hey, you've seen this before, you know what to do. And that is seriously the world's most powerful operating system, completely trained by repetition and reinforced and refined by pain. And it's why experienced leaders can kind of sniff out a bad hire before the interview even ends. And it's hard to justify gut instinct because it's just, quote, a feeling, but it's uncanny how founders can feel when a client is about to churn, or when great operators have a sense of the system breaking before any metrics show it. That's instinct. It's evolution. It's evolved. It's not actually emotional. But AI, as analytical, lightning fast, and brilliant as it is sort of built on the opposite principle. It doesn't feel patterns, but it replicates them. And so it learns about what you're telling it, what's already happened, but it cannot sense what's about to or anticipate the future. And I think that's really the key topic here, is the difference between intelligence and wisdom, where AI is great. It can tell you what worked, but your gut can tell you what will. And when you start deferring to AI machines and LLMs and basically anything outside yourself, you stop exercising that gut instinct muscle. And it's like letting AI drive when you forget how to read the road. And this is probably expected by, you know, anyone in our industry could have seen this coming, where the pendulum has swung too far. And it's in many industries across the board, where 10 years ago, it just seems like a lifetime ago, but it really wasn't that long ago where we ran on gut and grit and intuition driven chaos. And now we drive data paralysis through our businesses, through our minds. And we've kind of turned leadership into this checkbox, or maybe more like an Excel formula where it's clean and rational, but it's also painfully slow. And so instead, when, something feels off, we don't trust ourselves, but we go looking for proof. And every time you delay a decision to seek out validation, you kind of teach your brain that you can't trust your gut instinct. And so you become data dependent in in an unpleasant way, where if you do that long enough, your gut instinct will just kind of shut up. And that's how good leaders really become average operators, is they stop sensing and they replace instinct with input. And you can see it in the culture too, where teams are not able to think beyond or past a ticket. They have stopped moving on trust or discussion. They are consistently documenting or deferring, where decisions are put off unnecessarily by waiting for the validation of the data. And while AI didn't cause that, it does reward it. And it's very comfortable. It's a comfortable place to be, where the world of process and logic and hindsight is a safe place, but that is not where progress lives. And for some of you listening to this, it might be painful to hear that. It's almost painful for me to say it, because I am so driven on certainty and consistency and process. But having worked with Jay for the last 10 years, that is not what drives organizations forward. You cannot know everything, nor can you get the most perfect validation. And if you really want to lead in the age of AI, as this is now being called, you have to have a new hierarchy of trust. And so we're going to hopefully see a swing back, maybe a little toward the middle, where you go for your gut first, data second, and AI third, because your gut will give you the direction and data will give you context. AI can give you perspective, and it all happens in that order. So that's how you can stay human and strategic. Where I see some mistakes made is we're leading with AI first, and it's really hard to back a gut instinct into that. And if you use your gut to make the call, data to test it, and AI to kind of explore those edge cases or missed opportunities or communication gaps. AI is really great at showing you where you might have missed the mark, but it's not great at being your gut instinct. If you start with the machine, you will always sound like one. And I've seen a lot of teams transform once they sort of relearned this skill, and it really is a skill. Whether you've been in your position for a couple months or many years, gut instinct is developed off of you consistently retraining your brain. I saw a COO couple months ago who was waiting for dashboards that sort of felt off. Where is the data going to validate this gut feeling? But they stopped waiting and they made some conversations happen, and it really saved their quarter. And that kind of happens with people who know the patterns. If you've been working in budgets or in a campaign, you kind of get a spidey sense, we'll call it, of, I feel like this is off. I don't have anything to justify this right now, but I'd like to pay attention to it. And, I think we know more than we give ourselves credit for. The brain is really incredible. And I wish people would keep trusting that still, even with the amazing opportunities AI offers us. It's such a valuable skill that I really don't want to see people lose. And so if your instinct is a muscle to build, there are probably a couple quick ways in which you can think about rebuilding that. Is it's okay to act and then analyze. You can write down your decisions and then track back how did it pan out. Um, the feedback loop is is something that a lot of us miss because we move so fast. Rarely do we take a second to kind of go back and analyze. And you can track almosts. So it's been many, many years, but I used to work in education. And I just had this gut instinct about a person we were working with. And I just had this feeling, it was so strong, but I couldn't put it into words. And because it was sort of verging on an HR departmental issue, because there wasn't evidence, it was a really hard conversation to have. But ultimately, I was right. The person created some problems, and it was not an almost, it was an issue. But I wish I would have found a way to have some additional help to validate my gut instinct with another individual that might have seen things that I missed. And giving AI a seat, it's still super important. You're going to miss out a lot of opportunities if you don't give it a seat, but it's not supposed to sit at the head of the table. It's an amazing thought partner. I've been pivoting my approach to the use of AI. Jay and I, oddly enough, have very different experiences with our custom GPTs. His are very consistent, and mine are not. And they're basically built in very similar fashions. So recently, I've been using one to plan a larger, more involved trip. And so I kind of just brainstorm and ideate with it. And I've realized that when I do a better job of digging into what I want and what I'm looking for, and I communicate that like it is a thought partner, if I treat it like a tool, it's going to give me crap. But if I treat it like a thought partner and I give it more information, like treating it like an intern, I do get better results. And I've kind of shifted from being super lazy with AI just to see where it will lead, and give it a little more structure and more guardrails. And I am happier in my responses. And then, probably one of the last couple pieces of advice is giving yourself some space to think. I just had a chat with one of my leaders last week where we have these packed weeks and we all do these awesome ideation sequences in our showers. We come back and we're like, I had this thought in the shower. What do you think about this solution for this client? And it's just hilarious to me in that the ways we give ourselves peace and quiet and time to think and step away from the massive data overload that we experience is typically something as mundane as a shower or doing the dishes or walking your dog. And taking some time to reflect on that, I've started making that a daily habit to kind of close that feedback loop a little bit of how did my day pan out with what I expected? Did I have a gut instinct situation and how did that end up working out for me? What data was helpful and maybe what's too much? The cool thing about marketing is how much data we have, but it's also slowing a lot of people down because it's really hard. The more data you have, I think sometimes the harder it is to tell a consistent story because there are so many one-offs and, edge cases. Um, and so I think if you can take a couple of those tips, acting, then analyzing, look at some of your almosts, giving AI a seat at the table, but don't give it the full head of the table space, create some quiet and reflective spaces for yourself. You will work to build back those intuition muscles, and they truly can rival any algorithm. I mean, maybe this is an old school topic, but if you remember when Deep Blue played a human being in, I think it was, oh goodness, I forget, the Go was the game, and chess. Human beings are really incredible, and I don't want to see AI replace any super smart people or have them second guess themselves. So maybe this is the PSA for you to recheck your gut instinct and give it some space at the table. And don't worry so much about being perfectly correct all the time. This is where we have to stop reacting to technology and start remembering who made the technology in the first place. And so making a decision the good old fashioned way might just be what the doctor ordered. Well, I really hope you all enjoyed this solo cast, PSA on refinding your gut instinct. And I'd love for you to reach out to us on LinkedIn, connect with me. I'm always looking for amazing thought leaders and people and questions. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Revenue Rewired podcast. Send us your questions to podcast@stringcaninteractive.com and follow us for more insights to drive your business forward.